Hello and welcome to day 2 of Champ Camp. Today I'll be talking about visuals and statistics and how to apply it to your DECA competition. First of all, why are statistics and visuals important? Well, utilizing these can help you stand out from competitors by providing unique aspects, graphics, or information that other people might not have provided that will help you earn points and stand out and make you memorable to a judge. In addition, they can help you save word space on a written event or speaking time during a roleplay, both of which are extremely valuable and limited. They can also help you score specific points. I'll elaborate a bit more on what this means later, but basically, utilizing these strategies can help you score points by demonstrating your creativity or problem solving or just explaining concepts well. Back on that last point, to illustrate and explain concepts, another benefit of using visuals and statistics, flowcharts are especially helpful for explaining like cause and effects, but there are tons of visuals you can use to explain these in role plays or written projects, and I'll elaborate more on that in a later slide. Okay, first of all, let's take a look at some rubrics for grading, and I'll explain exactly how utilizing strategies for visuals and statistics can help you score exact points. So on the left, we have a grade sheet for a roleplay event. Let's not take a look at the performance indicators or the event itself right now because we're going to look at this as like a general roleplay scenario. Since the 21st century skills, that's what we're going to be looking at. Those are the same for pretty much every roleplay, and they're worth a sizable chunk, about 30%. So let's take a look at them. They're at the very bottom over here where it says 21st century skills number 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So a lot of these like communicate clearly, show evidence of creativity, overall impression, reason effectively. All those can be aided by use of effective visuals and statistics. In addition, on the right, we have a business operations research event grade sheet. Um, so if you go to the introduction, you can take a look at number 3, description of target market, demographics, and psychographics. So these can greatly be aided by statistics about your target market, like, for example, the demographics, their age, gender, ethnicity, or their psychographics, like their interest or type of activities that they do. You can pull statistics from the internet about those using like a reliable source. You can probably just search up like whatever your city or target market plus statistics, and there'll be tons of information that pop up. And you can summarize those using a visual like a bar graph or a pie chart, both of which are a great way to save a lot of space on your written project instead of writing it all out in words and numbers that may be harder to read and will take up more space. In addition, we can take a look at some like the research methods, which are 5 and 6, or the findings and conclusions, 7 and 8. If you're doing one of these operations and research event, you'll likely run into some numbers when you're doing your research. You might not, it depends on what exactly you're doing, but a lot of competitors do. And when you have numbers from the data and research that you did, a great way to explain these is by using visuals. You can use statistics, you can use statistics testing methods. You can use, like I mentioned earlier, bar graphs, pie charts to summarize them and show them to your judge. And by using these visuals, it's a really effective way to convey the information without just like rambling on in lots of words. And since your judge is going to be reading a ton of written projects, they probably don't want to see a huge wall of text every single time. And doing this will help explain exactly what your point is without boring them or being um, too rambling on. So in addition, you can look at like the pros budget, which is number 12. Budgeting usually has a lot of numbers associated with it again, and you can summarize this in an infographic or just any type of a visual that has all the information without, again, listing it in a bunch of words, which may be repetitive or too long, take up your word space and be hard to read. So there are a ton of ways you can implement these into your written project that will help you score points and just make your project better overall. We can take a look at a few more of these. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but for example, on project management on the left, you can look at like monitoring and controlling, monitoring schedule, budget and project quality, so on and so forth. Again, a lot of these you can use graphics to explain them using like flowcharts, diagrams, instead of just writing it all out in words. You can take a look at like the franchise business plan. This one has a ton of like financial information. For example, in number 10, it has like a lot of like cash flow, operating statement. Again, using visuals to explain these instead of just typing it all out in a huge wall of text will be very helpful. Okay, so hopefully by now I've convinced you that utilizing visuals to explain your statistics and just visuals in general can be very helpful. So now I'm going to talk about how you can implement them specifically in your role plays or in your written projects. Okay, so first we'll talk about role plays. I talked about this a bit in the last Champ Camp video, but I'll elaborate a bit more right here. So SWOT and pest analysis, if you don't know what these are, you can just Google them. There's a ton of information out there. But if you're doing a role play situation where appropriate and you can use a SWOT or pest analysis and you think it will help explain a performance indicator, you should go for it. Here's an example of like a very basic SWOT analysis. Again, in real competition or in, should I say, traditional competition, you won't be able to like type something up like this one obviously is. You'll just have to write it out by hand, but you can make something just this basic, like 4 sections with strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats, and write something in each box. It's as simple as that. So you can use that to explain your SWOT analysis and however it relates to your situation. You can make business cards. A lot of competitors like to do those to stand out and make them memorable to their judge, since usually judges are supposed to like keep your notes, including whatever graphics you provide. Obviously, in an online setting, it might be a bit different, but in a traditional setting, a lot of competitors like to use business cards to help them to use as like a graphic or visual. Graphs and charts are another way to explain information. Again, obviously in a traditional role play, you won't be able to like make a graphic like this, but this is extremely simple. You can just make like a pie chart, a circle, you can draw lines to cut it into pieces, and you can section them into whatever the role play prompt calls for. So if you have information like maybe the situation is that you're planning a marketing campaign and based on the previous information, this is like the estimated reach for each different category, then you can use this pie chart as reasoning for whatever your point is. Like, for example, over here, conventions is a large portion. So maybe you're going to say that because of the previous data that suggested that conventions are a large portion of our reach, we're going to continue to invest in that and we're going to plan new events based on that. If you're doing a marketing campaign or just trying to advertise a product for your role play, you can make an example of an advertisement. You can just like, if, for example, if one of your advertising methods was using a billboard, you could draw it out like a billboard, the sign itself, and whatever words or graphics you're going to have on it. Again, you won't be able to make anything super fancy in the brief time provided during a role play, but this just, you can draw something out that's very simple, like this one. See, it doesn't have anything too fancy image wise. Obviously the cows, you probably won't be able to draw like 2 whole cows in a role play, but look how simple the words are. Just eat more chicken and Chick-fil-A. It can be something as simple as that. If you're going to use social media as part of your role play or plan or solution, you can like create a fake Instagram page for your company. You you won't be able to like actually make one during your role play, but you can draw something out, a template based on what a typical Instagram page looks like writing out. So first drawing a phone, drawing out the rectangular format of it. You can write like the username like Pepsi, posts, followers, following, and you can draw some sample posts. You can write a like description and like business category and so on and so forth. Also, if you're trying to like market or talk about a product, you can draw that. So for example, in one of my role plays, I had to market, I think it was like a chat box for customer service. So I drew an example of what it would look like and using the chat feature and chatting to customer, showing like a small rectangular box in the bottom right hand side of the window. Um, if you're planning to make a website for whatever you're doing, you can like draw out a website with the URL and like its main tabs on the home screen and stuff like that. So using these visuals again, it can help you stand out. And these are just some examples of ideas you can do to implement visuals into your presentation. Okay, now for written events. So I mentioned a few of these earlier, like using statistics to justify your rationale or reasoning. In addition, if you're doing like a target market, like in the BOR events earlier, where asked for the target market and their like demographics or business situation or psychographics, you can use statistics based on like the numbers that you found online. Again, you'll have to cite the source in your bibliography at the end. So make sure you have reliable information, but you'll be able to use statistics for that. and you can represent it in a visual, which will wrap it up very nice, and it won't be too like wall of text stylish. Um, you can also use like Canva or design software for your whole written project. So I know what a lot of people like to do is, instead of just typing out a really bland looking like essay style written paper, a 20-page written paper for one of their events on Google Docs or Microsoft Word, like to first type out all the text and information on Google Docs or Microsoft Word, and then import it into a graphic design software like Canva. Um, you may not be familiar with what exactly Canva is, but there are a ton of different design softwares out there that you can use. Canva is just an example, and it's one that I personally enjoy and find very useful. But you can basically copy your text there after you make your like Canva template and all your graphics, and you just basically import all your information, and then your written project turns into like a, from a really bland piece of plain text to pretty much a 20-page or a 10-page graphic. So it's really nice. Um, Also, I know a lot of competitors sometimes after they're done with like the first drafts, they have huge written projects that are way above the word limit. A great way to handle this is by getting rid of some words by replacing them with graphics. Again, like I mentioned earlier, you can do this in many different places. Like when talking about your target market, when talking about your budget and finances, when talking about like a marketing plan or a flow chart instead of writing out words, stuff like that. Um, Also, one thing I want to emphasize is that don't try to focus on making your things look pretty or artistic. Although that can help, the main focus of this isn't to create some really like visually appealing, very pretty like aesthetic portfolio. You want to use visuals in a way that will add to your presentation and conveying your information. So this is a quote directly from the guidelines for written events, and says, drawings, illustrations, and graphic presentations will be judged for clarity, not artistic value. So don't sacrifice information for visual aesthetics, basically. In addition, you can use Google Sheets or Excel to create some kind of graphs and charts. Google Forms is a great way to import information to Google Sheets. I'll explain this a bit more in later on. And also, if you're doing a research type event like the BOR events, you can use statistical terminology in testing only when appropriate. So if you're familiar with these, you can utilize them after you gathered all your data, whether it be like quantitative or qualitative, and use some of these methods like testing the means or alpha values, null hypotheses, all those fancy terms that can help impress your judge by showing that you have statistical knowledge and that your data is statistically significant and that your plans are justified by these statistically significant data. Okay, so now I'm going to elaborate on one of the previous points about Google Sheets and forms. So right here, I have pulled up a Google Sheet with just some basically random numbers. Here's a really quick way to make a chart or graph once you input all the information in Google Sheets. So let's say you did like a survey or just any type of research and you collected this data. So I'm going to highlight all of these. Then you can go to Insert, Chart, and it automatically generates a sample chart for you. And there are tons of different options that give you a few suggested ones. Obviously, this doesn't look the best. You probably might want to adjust it. You can adjust these on the right. You can adjust the title. You can just like the lines, the colors, and everything. You want to personalize. You want to try to personalize it so it fits your own written project. But this is a really easy way to get a chart from just a raw data, because Google Sheets is very user friendly in helping you create these. Another example, here, let me delete this one real quick. Here's an easy way to make like a pie chart. So right here, I have selections like an answer choice and the frequency, how many times it was chosen. So maybe you're doing a survey, like a multiple choice survey, and you're trying to illustrate that people chose one option over the others. So you can do the same thing. You highlight it, you go to insert chart, and go to here. So when you click on chart type, it gives you tons of options. Suggested will depend based on your data, but over here is the pie chart because this type of data fits perfect with the pie chart. So there, I just made a really quick and easy pie chart. As you can see, it's a great representation of this data. 12.5% chose A, 37.5% chose D, and so on and so forth. So when you're making graphs and charts, if you don't know where to start, Google Sheets is a great way to start. And I know I didn't talk about everything related to Google Sheets, and you probably have plenty of questions, but there's tons of online resources on how to use Google Sheets and how to create these graphics that you can find with just one Google search. So don't be afraid to search for more information, or you can contact me if you have any other questions about this. Okay, that wraps up today's episode of Champ Camp. Like always, if you have any other questions, you can reach out, and if not, enjoy the video. Oh, also, back to the Google Forms. I forgot to mention this earlier, but if you're doing a survey or any kind of research that includes Google Forms where you're collecting data, you can easily import these to Google Sheets. Just go to your responses, click on this button, this is create spreadsheet, and basically it will create a spreadsheet like the one here that has all the data from your survey or your Google form. It's like compiled all nice and neat, kind of similar to this, and then you can just highlight and insert a chart like I just showed you earlier. So if you're using Google Forms to collect data, it's really simple to create graphics based on this easy method. Okay, yeah, if you have any other questions, you can reach out, contact us anytime, but if not, yeah, stay tuned for tomorrow's Champ Camp episode. I'll be talking about virtual competition. See you then.